Through the years, I've come to understand that a whole lot of the choices that a lot of us make, whether good or bad, derives from the choice of other people and the environment, in which shapes the social arena that we all have to live in each day. This society and this environment, we all are part of it because we all created it. So it's the power of choice. But once you come to understand that a lot of your choices derive from the choice that others made, and if you find yourself in areas of your living journey that tends to perceive you in a sense to where it's kind of odd, to me that's an alarming effect to where you should come to understand that, due to the fact that you understand that the choice that you make could be rooted in a choice that someone else has made, in which you fallen under the influence of, in which created your choice. You have to understand the importance of thinking for oneself, which could be considered complicated, because how many of us actually think for ourselves, living in a structured society that is governed by this government? So we're all affected by this social structure that has been put out here for centuries upon centuries. And so that is an important thing to come to understand. However, it is not impossible to die of all of those things, to the degree that you find yourself as a non-conforming in that particular area, to where you come to actually become to think for yourself. Now, a lot of people may say, well, how can one come to think for themselves and be a non-conforming at the same time? The whole gift and understanding of being a non-conforming shapes the mind and the spirit to the degree to where one becomes enlightened, and from that point on, you are coming in the reality of being able to think for oneself, and you find yourself not of this world anymore, but you are still enabled to be able to function in it. Once you find your true purpose on this planet, we all have a God-given gift. We all have a God-given gift, and it takes a whole lot of us, the majority of our lifetime, to come to realize exactly what it is. But once some of us come to find out exactly what it is, and we dedicate ourselves on executing that gift, only then will you make an independent impact on this world. And that's what a whole lot of, that's what primarily the reason why humanity was established on this earth, to heal the earth, to resolve all of this mess and not to add to it. As the method of prayer, when Yeshua had gave them, a lot of people say it's the holy prayer, but it's not a prayer, it's a method of prayer. This is one of the reasons why he said, pray upon this wise. So in other words, pray this way. But it is mentioned that thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. People always looking up, but he said the kingdom of heaven is within you. So the kingdom of heaven can only be established on the earth by what's sitting up in the hearts and minds of the human being. However, as long as we're governed by the effects of this government system in terms of the environment and the social structure, that won't be able to be accomplished. So it's going to take a whole lot of us to come to realize where and how this is going to be established on this beautiful planet. However, we have to also understand, and many of us are seeing this day, that the world has to go into a much darker place than it is now in order for this to transpire. As this opens up, it is one thing that the human family cannot deny. And I've conversed with enough people, even the people who I come up with in the community, and how we've all went our separate ways, just like any other community of people coming up to know one another. And then as your lives go in different directions, as with the most of the human family, everyone goes through a whole lot of things in their lives, and they become even more so of themselves through life experience. And we all come to know things, and we all come to develop and mature as human beings to such a degree to where this is very fundamental, that you go in different directions, you experience similar things, and you experience things that are different. However, the similarities are based upon and developed by way of the designed social structure by this government in terms of religion, politics, what is perceived as right, what is perceived as wrong. And through the years, you develop your own viewpoints on things, so-called your own viewpoints on things. However, a whole lot of these viewpoints derive from the way that the social structure has been designed by way of information based upon what the government decides of what is required reading, not only from libraries and social media, but the effects of the environment based upon politics, religion, personal experiences. You know, you come back in contact with people to the degree you make the mistake and think that you're going to come back in contact with the same people. However, time determines something else. And you come to realize that even though you know certain people, you really don't know them anymore because of time and the human development and everything. So as time goes on, you come to realize that in coming back in contact with a whole lot of people, and due to the fact that the world is going into a dark place, and everyone's concerned of the world not going into a dark place. However, their viewpoints and everything are assisting the earth going into a dark place because of the effects of religion, and primarily, especially this day, the effects of politics, and how politics is causing so much hatred and divisiveness in the world to where it's affecting everyone who are involved in those particular areas of living. religion, and politics. And so when you are a living human being who decides not to be a conforming of either one of those, you find yourself outside of those realms. However, due to the fact that you're living in the same society and in the same function of the human experience, of course you're going to derive some different point of views and insights on a whole lot of things that are going to clash with the religious world and the political world. And those who are involved in those two sections of the world, you're going to find yourself clashing with those people. And so as time goes on, what you're starting to realize is that due to the fact that the world is going into these dark places based upon those two sections of the human reality, which is, as was mentioned, politics and a religion, you're going to find yourself losing people who you knew in the past. And it's unavoidable because a whole lot of these people are so caught up in the hatred and the effects of the hatred that you have no choice but to back away from them and just leave them be, because you don't want to get caught up. You don't want to get caught up in the effects of it because you don't belong to neither one of those realms anymore. But it is one thing that you do see is the world going into a very dark place. But all at the same time, you also understand that the world has to go into that dark place in order for things to get better, because the common human being doesn't understand what is better until the world is in, the situation is urgent. You know, as children, you know, our parents tell us don't do thus and so, don't do thus and so. And so our rebellious spirit, we do things that they told us not to do, and then the only time that we really wake up is when we're being punished by our parents. And that's called getting whippings and chastisement and being put on punishment. We need time to understand the urgency of why they say don't do thus and so. And that's the only time to where real enlightenment comes about. And then from that point on, a lot of us don't execute those same things that our parents told us that we should not do. After going through a whole lot of pain or being isolated in our rooms for a certain amount of time, we come to realize the wrong that we've committed. And so to prevent ourselves from having to be chastised and having to suffer through those dark times of either being whipped or isolated, we come to understand exactly why we shouldn't commit certain things. However, the type of world that I'm looking at right now, and a whole lot of people are looking at, especially tonight from talking to a group of men and women, we all had came to one conclusion, that the rate that the world is going into, and the rapid pace that the world is going into, we're getting ready to experience a whole lot of dark times. Now, due to the fact that we understand that it has to go in this direction in order for things to get better, having that understanding strengthens our endurance in order to suffer through it. Now, there's a whole lot of people that are involved in taking the world into a dark place. They don't have this understanding, and therefore they don't have this acknowledgement that they're going to have to go through a strong endurance period in order to survive it. And the reason why they don't have this um, gift is that these people are prime participants in taking the world into a dark place, and yet still they've been manipulated to think that what they think, what they believe, and their point of views and all of these things are a necessity to take the world into a place where things are going to get better. However, due to the fact that a whole lot of these perceptions are rooted in the political system and justified by the religious world, they're being manipulated to think that what they're doing is correct. However, the only time that they are going to understand exactly what's going on, they are going to have to be forced into a place that they help create, which is this dark time that the human family is getting ready to suffer. Only then are they going to be made to realize how the world has been taken into this dark condition that is slowly manifested through all of the chaos. They are going to have to come to understand that they are the cause of it. And this is the reason why I say the human family, the only way that the human family is going to get better, we have to first become better human beings. We have to dismiss ourselves from a whole lot of what's going on right now that has been made and designed to be believed as the norm. However, the world is going into a very dark place, and those who don't come to realize that are the primary ones that are going to be affected the most.